It looks like the attendee list has leveled off today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Once again, I'm Ken Kibler, Director of Training and Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. Today, we're going to do the weekly business update, and then we're going to move into a discussion with a couple of CSPs that have transitioned from day pay to hourly pay, as well as transition from the standard operating model into Network 2.0. Joining us today will be Kenny Januszczak out of Affinity Logistics, I believe in Lincoln and Omaha, and Tracy Taylor from Desert Fox out of Topeka and Hayes, Kansas. I will unmute them at that point and ask them several questions that hopefully benefit all of the listeners today, moving through, I said, the process of conversion to hourly pay as well as conversion into the Network 2.0 model. As I must say it every time, remember ET is not endorsed by FedEx Corporation. And as Becca has a couple things for us today.
Thank you. So eTruckBiz, for those of you that may be new or just discovering our YouTube channel, I wanted to let you know what eTruckBiz does. We are the leader in contractor support. So we offer business services, consulting, and software that's going to help FedEx service providers become successful, independent business owners. So our methodology is going to help contractors from daily operational chaos all the way to building a business with real long-term value. So to start this off, we're going to diagnose the chaos. So this may be staffing issues, scheduling, compliance issues, or operational efficiency. From there, we would install the playbook. This is going to be where we are applying our systems and processes, helping you get organized, better understand the business, and then create a workable plan for you. Next step is to execute with support. So through our business growth and support system, we help contractors implement the plan and stay on track. And then that brings us to build enterprise value. The result is a stronger, more scalable, valuable business that can create future exit options. So eTruckBiz exists to help FedEx contractors build a business that is more profitable, easier to run, and more valuable over time, not just one that survives the week. So by using our system and processes, you're going to have more control, better margins, and life-first goals. This is a business that's going to support your life and not one that fully consumes it. I did want to share something that a service provider said about eTruckBiz at one of our recent Network 2.0 presentations. He said, "You went beyond the conversation. You helped us even before we were a customer. That told us everything about who eTruckBiz really is." And Alex, he was at the Atlanta presentation, so I just want to thank you for that. We really just tried to find the time to discuss your needs and plan a workable agenda for your operation. So then we're built around contractor support. So eTruckBiz, it's not built just to sell software or advice. We offer strategic support, operational support, and human support. So you get real guidance from people who are understanding the contractor world. We're more than just a vendor. We actually can partner with you and get you on track to meet your goals. So if you are interested in learning more about any of our services, our software, or our programs, you can scan this QR code to get on the calendar, or you can always email me, Becca@eTruckBiz.com, and then you and I can have a conversation, schedule something, get you on the calendar. But any questions at all, here is my contact info, and please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, Becca.
You're welcome.
All right. Locked up again here. Okay, if you're in the New York area tomorrow, please stop by and see Jeff as he is on assignment in the New York Westbury Long Island area. He'll be at the Courtyard by Marriott, Westbury Long Island. The address is 1800 Bravado Road, Westbury, New York, 11590, and that presentation will start at 3:30 tomorrow. Also, on 6/3 of 2026, we will be in San Antonio, so we will send details out to you, okay? So now for the volume updates for week 20. Good news on the pickup volume on the vans. We were up 3% over the previous week. Pickup packages also up slightly, just under 0.5%. And what's good thing about that, it is above the trend line. Delivery volume down slightly, which we kind of expected after the Mother's Day rush. Pickups dropped a little bit last week, so of course that means our delivery volume is going to drop this week. Stops by almost 3.5%. Delivery packages by just over 2%. Still above the trend line, so that is a positive. Productivity. Once the volume dropped, our routes dispatched, we did drop those by 0.3%, which is good. Our stops per dispatch did drop under that Mendoza line of 100. We're down to 98. That was a 3.1% drop. And that's kind of a good transition into what we're going to talk about as the volume drops. How do I adjust my labor? We firmly believe that the number of shifts have to change, which are your dispatches, and of course, the on-road hours have to change once again, but I have to maintain my productivity, the stops per hour. So we're going to have, like I said, a panel interview here. Ken Januszczak, I believe you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here.
And you are with Affinity Logistics. Are you out of Lincoln and Omaha both?
Correct. 2 CSAs.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So I think when we talked last, you switched to hourly payroll even before you moved to Network 2.0. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We've always paid hourly, and the size of trucks we have a mix of, from a Sprinter van and up. So we've always paid hourly, and then we've had to pay overtime, of course, time and a half. Biggest change that we made though with 2.0, I'd say, is we're around the time of that post peak, I'll call it, is we transitioned to 4 10-hour work days on hourly to try to eliminate the overtime and a balance from Saturdays and turnover and fatigue. So that's been a huge change for us in a positive way for hourly, but 4 10-hour shifts has been a huge change for us.
Okay, excellent. So you went hourly and then you even made adjustments after that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. But why you were paying a day pay, what was kind of the aha moment that said, you know what, I got to change what I'm doing here?
Yeah, I think with 2.0, there's so many, with the dispatch times, guys getting out way later and inconsistent at first while the terminal's trying to figure itself out, on top of all logistic things with the time commits and not being able to do the basic boring route however you want selfishly. You've got to, dart around town and be creative. And then you've got also back to building times that you have to hit. There's so many other things that I just think with driver fatigue and frustration, you're going to pay me X amount of dollars before, but you're going to pay me this to do all this extra work. I just think before we had a disaster on our hands. Kudos to anybody else that didn't have a bunch of turnover with that change. But for us, we have very little turnover with this business model currently.
That's excellent.
I have a lot of friends in several terminals, and it seems like it's a revolving door. Every day there's 2 or 3 new people every couple of days, and I have maybe 1 new person or 2, maybe every 2 months at the most. And that's just because we're replacing some underperformers, we'll call it, slowly.
And that's excellent. We're going to kind of get into some of that a little bit later, but that's excellent that it reduced your turnover. So walk us through what a typical dispatch day looked like before kind of Network 2.0 transition, and then what was your single biggest operational difference that you feel, with prior to Network 2.0 and after Network 2.0 was implemented?
I just think it was probably, looking back, it was, you don't know what you don't know, obviously, until after, but I'd say it was just easy is probably what comes to mind before. It's basic, almost a boring basic business. Everybody comes in around the same time. The dispatches are pretty consistent of roughly what time guys and gals can get in and out. They can do their routes however they want. Obviously, we're still managing in all processes and expectations. You get pretty comfortable, I would say, in the same old for a long time. And with 2.0, everything changes. Your BCs have to become a full-time babysitter watching your software or whatever. If it's for us, we use Ground Cloud. If you're watching that all day long, watching time commits, there's a lot more expectations from the terminal. And then you have a late dispatch, pop fly or late express flight comes in, and then you still got a 6 p.m. back to building time, and your time of window's shrunk. So then you have to get creative, and there's just a constant, it's a think tank every day now, it seems like. And it gets better, but for me personally, it seems like the first 60 days is tough. But the 2.0 launch for me in the Omaha building was just before peak as well. So that was another layer of disaster, to be completely honest.
Okay. When you went to the hourly pay, did you have kind of structured start times as well?
Yeah. We tried to have everybody come at 8:15, for example, but then the dispatch was getting to be 9:30, so I was getting crushed. I was paying overtime for people to just sit there and stare at the load that was taking forever. So it's been a little bit volatile there, to be honest, but it's pretty consistent now that they've got a pretty dialed in dispatch time in both buildings. We have specific start times now that are structured to eliminate wasted wages.
Some of the things that we've noticed before hourly and before Network 2.0 is unpredictable hours, no accountability, guessing at your labor costs, structured start times afterwards, predictable labor costs because they have an end time. And then we have also accountability built in. So, everybody, this is Tracy Taylor. He's from Desert Fox in Topeka and Hays, Kansas, the busting metropolis of Hays. So
Yep,
question.
thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And for you, Tracy, I know you were also hourly before you went Network 2.0, but what was kind of the biggest change for your management team and your drivers with the Network 2.0 expansion?
We started 2.0 obviously before started paying hourly before 2.0. One, because I was going to the eTruck stuff and they were talking about these changes that were coming. But one of the things that I saw was that wages are an incentive, right? And daily wages don't provide the correct incentive that I need my drivers to reach the level of productivity that we need. And we were productive before, but it got harder and harder as time has gone on to find people who understand, if I get paid a daily rate and I work faster and get done faster, I get paid more per hour. It's hard to find those people out there anymore. And truthfully, people don't want to work that way anymore. So by going hourly, it's made it easier to hire people at an actual rate and control our labor costs because we actually know what we're paying per hour instead of the make-believe stuff that everybody puts together.
Excellent. And that's a good transition. So you're saying basically there was a real cost to day pay, correct?
1,000%. I mean, it incentivizes the wrong thing. When it gets really busy, it doesn't benefit them. So the driver is pissed because now his day is 2 hours longer and he's not getting paid any extra for that. You either had to shove a bunch of packages and work them like horses every day, in and out constantly, which driver fatigue, burnout, all the things that we face. Or if you paid hourly, when something came up or you had extra freight today, you're not sitting here negotiating, hey, I'll give you $50 if you go make this pickup, or I'll give you $25 to go help Jim get his last 20 deliveries made.
Here's a good one, Ken, because I think we worked on this for a while on yours. How far off were the FedEx assumptions on volume and productivity in that Network 2.0 packet? And then how quickly did you realize it?
Oh, I think we realized it pretty much right away, but I think with your guys' help, I want to say it was close to 15 to 20% off as far as what volume was in the packet versus reality. So it was a fight, but obviously thanks to your help, it's better. It's still not where it needs to be, but it's better for sure. And I overlooked a lot of it without getting in the weeds with you, to be honest. So that's a huge thing.
Yeah, that was a battle, and I appreciate you, sticking it out. A lot of CSPs kind of just give up, but you were able to stick it out. But for those of you that aren't Network 2.0, in the packet, they're going to tell you how many dispatches per week. They're going to tell you how many stops per dispatch. And from there, you're going to be able to pull a model. Basically, they're going to tell you can do some math and we can come up with how many stops per hour it is based off of a 0.33 hour roll. Tracy, before you went hourly, did you know what your drivers were actually doing on a stops per hour basis? Yeah, like before you went into Network 2.0 or even before you went hourly, did you know what your drivers were doing, what their stops per hour was?
Yes, because that's been one of the big things that I've been about since I've been contracting is the productivity portion of what we do. And I tried to figure out how to make it work with the daily rate, but it just didn't. It's hard to demand performance and productivity if you're not paying for it.
All right. So what day pay turns to a variable cost, which are driver wages, into a fixed cost. I think that's probably the biggest problem with day pay, as well as what Tracy talked about was no incentive. If I have to work 2 hours longer, you better pay me more. And then there goes your hourly pay rate that you thought you had. what happened to your labor as a percentage of revenue during low volume times like Q1 right after peak? Tracy, when you were paying day, what happened to your labor as a percentage of revenue?
It exploded. It would increase. We'd run great during peak at that 35 to 40% range. Maybe if we were doing really good, even lower. But then you come out of peak, and now your labor cost is 60 and 70% because everybody needs a break from all that hard work, and you're still paying huge rates, but there's not enough work.
Yeah, so your BC probably feels obligated to give them a light day because they didn't pay them any extra during peak, right?
100%.
Okay. And Ken, did you see your labor as a percentage of revenue improve when you made this move?
I think that was part of the timing with me after peak of moving to the 10-hour model shift, and the timing of having extra bodies from the peak staff and then weeding through the ones that aren't going to make the team, obviously, but keeping that extra staff and moving to 410s to eliminate overtime costs, but also be able to shrink routes short notice, or if you get a low Tuesday, for example, and you have the ability to, we can shrink routes even more so if need be for the 10-hour model to make guys heavier. So it gives you a lot more useful weapons, I think, being hourly, and it's 4 o'clock and somebody's still got 80 stops left because they got a flat tire or life happened and they're an hour away from the building. You got 2 other people that are paid hourly go rescue 20 stops a piece, and everybody gets home at a decent time versus a day pay. You got to fight on your hands, or you're throwing them a bonus, or it eliminates such a mess.
Excellent points there. I love the flexibility of the 410s. Okay. Before you started measuring kind of your effectively hourly rate, what did you think you were paying drivers per hour? And what was the number when you actually ran the math? You probably did this exercise, Tracy, didn't you? Might have done it with Gary at one time.
Paying 35, $40 an hour.
Yeah, that's what you
Yeah,
found
do you hear
out.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yep.
So you found out guys were probably working 30 hours and getting paid like they were working a full time. Is that what you found out?
Yeah, we're paying them like they're working 60 for the 30, 35 hours that they're putting in for the week.
I know Gary, a lot of people don't know, Gary Wade did this example with somebody in the Tampa area, and they came up with a range as low as $12 an hour, and I want to say as high as $47 an hour. So this effective hourly pay is important to kind of take a look at and make sure you're keeping an eye on. And it'll be eye-opening if you're paying a day rate.
If your people are producing and they're being productive and you're pay them. If you're somewhat making some money now, you can still keep paying them, but you got to make sure that the pie is spread properly.
And I just got to touch on what Ken talked about. How easy was it for another contractor to pull one of your drivers away, for maybe just $10 more? They walked across the belt, and what was the trigger? Was it $10 a day? Was it $15 a day? Or now do you have a hook because you've got a scheduling variance for 10s? Oh my gosh, I only have to work 4 days a week and I get 3 days off now. Has it reduced I think you already said it reduced your turnover, Ken, but would they walk across the belt before for $10 a day?
I've been pretty fortunate there. Both terminals I'm in, we have a good relationship where nobody puts up with the games of that. But I've never had a whole lot of issue with that. But like I said, I'm just going to say sloppy before because we paid hourly plus overtime for a long time on people that were making too much money. So just moving to 410s, it's appealing for bringing on new, but we have almost no turnover for leaving for another. Most people I leave, it's for getting out of the business or moving away or life happens. But I've got quite a few friends that are contractors and I hear about it constantly. And I think it's just the 170 to 180, 190 days per day and the stuff we put these guys and gals through and all the expectations and hurdles and all the safety things and boxes checked for versus an hourly wage that people can relate to. And like this other gentleman said, if you got somebody good, just pay them because especially if you can control your overtime costs. If you have to pay overtime, just pay them what they're worth and get a life balance for it. And people are happy.
Excellent. And there's cost and turnover. It's not just the driver. It's just not, now I got to pay everybody $10 more a day. I mean, there's recruiting time, training hours, route disruption, dispatcher stress. The BC, all of a sudden, they're not a dispatcher anymore. They got to be a driver as well as a dispatcher. So that, we think that's a problem. Think back, Tracy, to when you paid day pay. And what was kind of your least productive dispatch? What did it cost you? How long were they on the road? How many hours did they put in? And what were you paying that person?
We were paying, anywhere from 100 and But what I found where we were really burning up is that we would get these real good, productive people, and they would just be sitting on the bench waiting for something to happen. That's where most of our labor cost was disappearing off to. Yeah, you got somebody who sits around and follows the BC, and they hang out all day long.
Okay, making this shift to hourly pay doesn't just happen. There were steps that had to be taken, and I think you both have done this. When you decided to make this move, Ken, or you started thinking about it, what was the biggest internal objection you had to overcome? Was it your own hesitation? Was it driver pushback? Was it BC pushback, or something else?
Oh, I think a little bit of everything. And it's one more, I think, to be honest, most who wants to take on another project, if it's status quo and it's working, quote unquote working, then who's going to take the time to do it? But if you take the time to actually get in the weeds of how much you're getting crushed on percentage of revenue of versus how much you can save and have a better morale and all the things that go into it, I'd say it's definitely worth it. But it's a project. Of course, if you have anybody that's long tenure, they're going to push back because it's just quote unquote the way it's always been and just how we do it, and which is BS. You just got to think outside the box and change. Status quo doesn't work in 2.0, at least from what I've seen.
So, Tracy, what your biggest internal objection?
I mean, really, it was just a change because everyone's resistant to change. But the first thing that I did is I came out to our team and said, hey, and this is a little different now because everybody's supposed to be keeping track of hours every day. So clocking in and clocking out. And pretty much I just told our staff, here's what we're going to do. We're already paying you what we're paying you right now. Let's keep track of everybody's hours and that'll be your set rate. And then that's kind of what helped us figure out, is this acceptable rate or not acceptable rate? And for the most part, then it was easier to make a negotiation with our people who'd been here longer, who were, they were aware that they were getting, $50 an hour some days. And I said, well, that's not going to work out. And they said, yeah, we understand that too. So we were able to, and we did lose some people over it because they wanted, $50 an hour. And I said, well, that just ain't going to fly. But it makes it easier to recruit when you are paying hourly.
Hey, this kind of goes on a little bit on this. We got a question. It says, if you have a bulk route to say with 6 or 7 stops that cubed out a 26-foot box truck and one can complete the route in 3 hours, how would you pay that individual? That one, Tracy? I would pay a part-time employee.
It's still paid. The answer is to pay hourly. The second question is, okay, so after they've worked the 3 hours, what else can they do for you to either get some time or to take care of things that, are not, it's cheaper to pay them to do it than send them somewhere. If it truly takes that, that's what it takes. And either you have a part-time person come do that, or, there's 100 different ways to solve that problem. But the answer is, how do you pay? The answer is always going to be pay hourly, because that's how FedEx is paying us. Why would we want to pay any?
Yeah. Why would you pay somebody a day rate to work 3 or 4 hours? So excellent. Okay. Ken, tell me how did you introduce pay rate, the hourly pay to your drivers? What was their reaction, and how long did it take before the culture around it was stabilized?
It was just a conversation. It's basically the same answers the other gentleman said. I think just having a conversation, and we just backed into it by their previous clock and hours, and obviously we know their productivity and what they're averaging per stops, and they're 10 years into that as well. And there's multiple years and you're a high producer, then obviously you might get a little bit of a more of a generous offer. But if you just dumb it down for people, if they were 200 a day and you're 20 now and you're working 10-hour days, and you can do the simple math, and if you have good culture and your people trust you, and you just tell them, if I'm wrong, let's look at it after your first paycheck and let's sit down and go through it line by line. Let's compare it to your old paycheck. And it's just communication. There's a few whoopsies, and I have a couple extra people hired and ready to go, I think, before you hit the big lever, because even if you dumb it down for somebody, they're going to take it the wrong way and think that you're screwing them and just leave and not listen.
When you move to shift-based thinking, with defined start times, planned dispatch times, expected end times, what changed in terms of how your business contact managed the day?
What changed for us is, one, our labor costs got in line on how they're supposed to be. It was a lot easier instead of having to one of the things that eliminated for us was when people didn't show up on time. We got on them and said, hey, like we set a start time, you need to be here on time. And then it prevented more, 3 hours didn't go by before somebody realized that, hey, this guy didn't show up for work today.
Good point. And Kenny, if you didn't have start times and you had some 10:30s or noons, how would you know if that driver's there or not, correct?
You have to really watch all that stuff in the morning. I won't even let them leave their dispatch until they physically touch all of the time commits in the morning. If you haven't physically touched it, we need to know now. And if you've routed or need us to help you route your day, if you're not confident you're hitting the 10:30 or noon, I want a conversation before you even start your truck, so we figure out plan B and not at 11:55 when you've got 3 to hit at noon. It's not going to happen.
And then that kind of moves into the next one, that midday check-in. What time is it that your BC starts calling people to make sure that they're going to get their time definites off? How do you work that process, Ken?
We have a group app that we use that they're on all day long. I mean, we do that, in the morning before they leave. We make sure everybody's good, set for success. And if there's something we don't think is going to be realistic, or from the employee, after a lot of hurdles and rough days at the beginning, you start to realize who can do what and what's reality on the routes, and you're designing routes for who can do how many time commitments, etc. And it's just constant oversight. Honestly, the BC needs to watch it all day long, or myself, or a lead driver. If you have a number 2 guy that does like a cleanup route, like that other gentleman asked about, that can help be a supervisor from afar or help babysit or move things around. But I think a midday check-in is not enough, depending on what your CSA is. So if you got a bunch of routes and then they're all over the place, you've got to check in all day long, because you also have, my one CSA is 2 hours. All of my trucks are 2 hours away from the terminal, and there's a 6:40 cutoff. So you got to have a conversation at 2, 3, 4 o'clock. I make them all meet at Sap Brothers 2 hours from the terminal at one resource, brings back 10 other guys' express to get back on time, and they go back and finish their route if it's a heavy day. So I mean, it's all day long. If you want to be successful anyways, at least for me, you've got to have people on it all day long.
Excellent. So you just can't dispatch a guy and say, have a nice day, correct?
Unfortunately, those days are over.
Absolutely. How about Network 2.0 brought some same day pickups on call in the mix? Ken, how are you staffing for those right now without blowing up the productivity of your full-time driver routes?
I've been pretty lucky. I don't have a whole lot of those in my CSAs, but the ones that really hurt me is the rural ones, because then they've got to turn around and drive way out of their way, or get another driver or a BC go help if need be. But knock on wood, I've been pretty successful there as far as we don't have that many, but we've been a couple of hiccups. But again, if you're communicating all day long, you get pretty good feel for who can go grab it or assign it to another guy.
Okay. Tracy, how about you? You've got one of the larger cities in the area with your same day on calls.
On our same day on calls, like what I figured out with same day on calls is they're frequent. They go to the same place, and it's not like everyone acts like there's some crazy random someone's going to call me and I'm going to be screwed thing, and it's not how it is. All my same day shippers, 99.8% are the same, and we've got it kind of broken down by which day they're going to call. And we utilize all that data to keep track of our same day on calls. And it's a non-issue for us.
Outstanding. One suggestion is, a person that might work 3 hours on those bulk trucks, have them available for same day calls in the afternoons. Maybe that 3 hour bulk truck doesn't start at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. They might start later and then be available for pickups, or just a part-time source as well. Okay. I think, Ken, you talked about it earlier, having a data and a system for following up on drivers and for compliance. And Tracy, I know you utilize our systems for compliance, correct? Yeah, Tracy, before you went through this change, I paid your drivers. How did you measure the on-road hours before, and then what system are you using now?
I mean, originally when I first got started, we just used the DSW, and you just take the number of stops divided by their on-road time to get that on-road productivity number, and that's what I used for a long time. But probably after a couple of years after I started doing business with eTruck, we got all that stuff through the BOSS system, and that's what we use now, and it's made it a lot less doing math on the back of a napkin.
Are you logging late preload and actual dispatch times? And have you ever used that as documentation and settlement discussion with FedEx? I think, Ken, you had messaged me yesterday about how the late dispatch times can absolutely blow up your payroll a little bit. So have you been documenting this at all?
I have, yeah. We're on a group, the AOs in the one terminal that we have a consistent issue with. We're on a group text constantly with daily in case one of us isn't there, basically on dispatch times, and a few of us talk daily. Just so I've got a log now going for it, just for for this exact reason, for payroll wages and even the time commits. It's not rocket science if they don't get us out of there until almost 10 in the morning and you don't hit your time commits, and they get us out of there 8:30 in the morning and it's an easy day and you have 100% everything. It's pretty common sense for rebuttal when they ask you why you didn't have a good day.
Yeah, excellent. And that, I stress that because you need to defend yourself, because FedEx quickly forgets that they dispatched at 10 o'clock and you didn't get all your 10:30s off. Final Mile thought they were dispatching at 9:15. They were dispatching at 9:45. That's a half hour on every one of your drivers, means you're going to need extra dispatches because that window doesn't extend on the back end. Your drivers, what time did you say your drivers have to be back to the building, Ken?
Omaha, 6:40 p.m.
Yeah, 6:40. So they got to get back. That window cannot be extended. So if you're losing delivery window, you got to be compensated for it. Okay. But, Tracy, you said, labor during peak would be 35%, then it'd go to 70%. Now that you're hourly, how was your labor as a percent of revenue in January?
Right now, well, our labor percent was a little higher in this January because we were retooling for some things moving with the 2.0 in Manhattan. But right now, currently, we're operating at a 37% labor rate in Hayes and a 41% labor rate in Manhattan week over week.
A 41% labor rate in Manhattan?
Yeah.
Outstanding. How about you, Ken? I think you said one of your operations really came in line with your labor percentage as you got more and more efficient.
Yeah. Well, for example, the one that I'm still retooling with the 4-day work weeks is still closer to 50%. And the one that's hourly with the for the 410s, for the most part, it's in the low 40s. So it makes a huge difference when you're talking that kind of dollars, obviously.
Excellent. And there's people out there who just don't believe that they're going to say drivers are going to milk the clock, they're going to stay out later, and my labor costs are going to explode. Here's definitely two examples that show that paying hourly doesn't explode your labor cost if it is managed and you're doing the right thing for your business and you're doing the right thing for the employee.
So you got to have a strong BC to hold people accountable if that's what your fear is. I said you got to have a strong BC if you're worried about converting from day pay to hourly and you're scared that you're not going to get anybody to get their job done or they're going to sandbag it, then that's on your manager.
Absolutely. Key phrase there. If your manager does not want to manage hourly, then they need to really find something else to do, because you have got to manage your labor. There is no bigger line item on your P&L statement.
You're actually smart to go from day pay to hourly, in my opinion, because you already see the productivity that they can do. So if you move them to hourly and the expectation changes, then that's the question. You have to figure out why.
Exactly. Excellent point. What was the one thing about the transition that you wish somebody had told you before you started? Kind of the thing that you had to learn the hard way, Ken?
Just one?
You get one, and we'll give Tracy one, because I'm sure there's a bunch of them.
Are you just all of 2.0 in general, the transition, or the hourly?
Either one. Yeah.
Okay.
Either one, or both, an example for both.
I'd say the transition. I mean, just the figuring out how to get your time commits and how to get back to building on time and how to design routes to do it and find the good quality people and weed out the bad ones. Obviously, that's always the battle, I think. But the hourly part of it, I don't think is too bad. I think it's just really, really document it, really get in the weeds of what you're paying them now and back into it with some simple math and a lot of conversations and hold hands through the first paycheck or two, and the rest is history, I think, then.
Excellent. Tracy, Network 2.0, what was you wish somebody told you beforehand?
Somebody probably did tell me most of this stuff beforehand, to be super truthful, but I didn't really believe them. Your people will get over all the craziness of 2.0. It's really it's not any different than what we did before. The only difference is now you got to go to a couple places before you went to other places. And I started probably, 12 to 18 months before we were going to go. So obviously, if you're listening to this right now, you probably got a compressed window because most of us are going here soon. But I started talking to my people well in advance and just told them, hey, this is what's coming. This is what it's going to be. And I wasn't very far off, and it's turned out to be really good for us and good for our employees. Everybody's pretty happy. And I told them that this express freight, you got to remember, those 10 express boxes you get on your truck, probably worth every piece of freight that you have in the truck. And I think people understand that.
It's the future. There's no doubt about it. And Ken, I think you kind of already touched on this. It says for a contractor sitting in the audience right now, still on day pay, who hasn't started the process, the single most important first step should be that they should take this week. I think you said work the numbers, do some simple math.
I'd say probably the first step would be make sure you're recruiting, just because you got to have that. It takes time to get people in place before you ever get in the weeds too far, because you'll lose some people, I'm sure. Maybe not, but I'd just say writing it all down. Yeah, just write down all your employee lists, write down what you're paying them now, back into it with some what you think you want to pay them, and just start having conversations.
Excellent. So before you even start, you have to measure what they're doing now, and then kind of what your new model is going to be, and then move after lots of communication, it sounds like. And then I think you also made that adjustment where, hey, I'm getting killed on overtime. If I go to the 410s, I can. You're not really reducing what you're paying the person. They're just making it in 4 days rather than 5 days, correct?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. And it seems to make less turnover and less fatigue. And, these guys work their butts off, in and out of the truck a lot. So get an extra day off. And the younger generation, especially, I don't know what I believe in the Gen Z versus the new kids, because I've got lazy 50-year-olds and I got lazy 21-year-olds. But I think it just the new today, people want their flexibility and time off, and it seems to really attract people. I've had more people approach me that I haven't even had ads out from friends and family than ever. And having extra staff for peak, they're already talking about peak planning, that's not that far from now. If you've got 15 dispatches you're doing on average a day now, but you're doing 22 or 23 or 24 in peak, and you've got 25 people on your roster on 410s now, it's really easy to get ready for peak and just tell them, you're going to get some overtime.
Yep. So do you go when they go to peak, they go to five days a week?
Yeah, we still hire some because you still get crushed, and then you get too lean on staff for situationals. But yeah, we do bonus plans, and they do get overtime.
Okay, excellent. Tracy, anything that you think we missed that we should give advice out there if they're thinking about going to hourly pay other than do it?
I mean, the easiest way is, I know you guys covered everything, but just take what you spend in labor. And if you're supposed to already be tracking punches, so you should already see how much hours out there, that'll give you your company average hourly wage right there. And it doesn't change anything because you're already paying that right now, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Okay. Each week, Ken, what's the number one metric you look at each week that you may not have tracked prior to Network 2.0, and then how does that help your bottom line? Is it stops per hour, hourly rate, dispatch yield, labor as a percentage of revenue, or is it all of them?
So I'd recommend kudos to you guys with getting an easy number, working with you guys to figure out what we need to get a day on average. It doesn't work that way. If you've got a rural route that drives 300 miles a day, they're only doing 60 stops, and my easy number is 90. Well, I've got 8 routes in city that are doing 130. So obviously you got to look at your total CSA, but I try to look at that regularly just to make sure we're hitting our easy number. That's been a huge change for me after working with you guys.
Excellent. That's good to hear. It's glad we put that program in, and I'm glad you can take advantage of it. And hopefully it's helping your BC. It's singularly focused on that number. If I put average this many stops per dispatch, I've done my job as a BC. Of course, I got to do other things throughout the day, but for you, it should make you breathe easier knowing that I've got the revenue on each truck that I can make money.
Right.
Anything stand out on this one, Tracy, for you?
I mean, they're all important, but for me, the largest one is the percent labor as a percent of revenue. At the end of the day, that's what matters the most, because really you can't get the other 3 if the percent of labor is not right.
Okay, absolutely. Carrie, anything that you wanted to add regarding with the negotiations and possibly logging the late dispatch times? Okay. All righty. Bob, do you have anything to add? Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
I didn't realize I was muted. My apologies.
That's all
yes,
right.
We want to make sure that those dispatch times are included in unique characteristics, especially if it's, on FedEx that they are dispatching consistently late. That is not your responsibility, or it does add to the costs of your business pay-wise, so make sure that you document all late dispatches and include those for negotiation purposes.
Excellent. And then Bob?
Yeah, when we're talking about, the hourly pay and reasons why to go hourly, drivers aren't going to be able to do the routes the same now. They're going to have to go hit their 1030s first and then backtrack. They are not going to want to backtrack, but now you're doing hourly. Look, you're getting paid by the hour. For every hour you work, use that as a tool to get the buy-in from your drivers. Because the 1030s, a year from now, at first it's going to be tough, but a year later, just like everything else, it's going to be just a normal day. It's not going to be any different than anything else. Just like all the other changes that FedEx has made over the years. If you look back 8 years ago, what did it look like? no one remembers because everything is normal now. So, use that as a tool to help get the buy-in from your drivers. The hourly is the right way to go.
Excellent. Good points. Do we have any other questions out there while we've got our panelists still on? I think Ken and Tracy added a lot of value today, gave you a lot of good tips, what worked for them, what didn't work, and hopefully proved the point that switching to hourly isn't going to cost me more money. Going to a 410 shift has reduced my turnover. Those are the things that you're looking for. So, Ken and Tracy, I want to thank you both. Like I said, very valuable resources here. You both have made this transition, done it very well, and hopefully eTruckBiz was there to help you along the way. So, doesn't look like we got any questions. So we will be back here next Tuesday at the same time. If we don't talk to you before then, please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.